Last night on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
We definitely have a lot of things to talk about, and we're going to start with the Steelers again. Matt Canada, we had a chance to talk to him today. Broderick Jones, you just heard some of those interviews. They're the two moves that actually worked for the Steelers in their last game against Tennessee. Matt Canada on the sidelines calling the plays. I think it's a good move, Chris. I like that they're going to keep him down there. I think you have a better interaction with the players, maybe a better feel for the game than being up in the booth, even though you can see more from the booth level.
He has people who can sit up in the booth and give him answers to any positioning questions that he really needs to know. I think Matt Canada is a proud guy and a more fiery guy than maybe those interviews would let on. And I think he coached with emotion. It feels so hokey to say, but I think it mattered to them in the Titans game, at least on that first drive. Obviously, things stalled out after that, but they got going again in time. They clearly need to go with it again because it worked. It got a win, and they looked better, especially coming out of the chute. Broderick Jones, I mean, that one's obvious too, Richie. They're a more athletic team. They're a better offensive line in every way as long as Broderick Jones is on the field. I wish he was at left tackle, but they must really feel like Dan Moore wouldn't be able to handle a shift mid-season. And so they put what I think is their best tackle on the right side, but at least he's in the lineup and not sitting on the bench needlessly.
You know, Matt Canada is also coaching for his job, I think. I mean, I think there is a slim chance that he's still around next year. I know a lot of fans out there don't want to hear it, but if he's out there on the sidelines, get some things turned around, their offense looked better. It still doesn't look great, but it looks better. And if they're taking steps in the right direction, who knows what's going to happen?
They would have to average, I think, between like 27 and 30 points per game for the rest of the season, Richie, for Matt Canada to have any kind of chance at keeping his job. And even then, I still think it would be a pretty slim chance at that. I think if they averaged 30 points a game for their last 9 games, I think they'd be right around 100 or 400 for the season. So that would be really something. The one horrible scenario would be they make very modest incremental improvements and the Steelers decide that that's enough to keep going for continuity's sake. I don't think that would happen. And so the only way I think he's back is if the offense is so spectacular, there's no way you could do it otherwise. And I think at that point, Richie, if they're averaging 30 points a game the next 2.5 months, I actually think fans would be okay with that. If they were ripping 4 and 5 touchdowns a game, they'd say, you know what, screw it, bring Matt Canada back. Look at this team.
Yeah, especially if they're averaging 200 yards on the ground, and that's what they would have to do to get to that level. Okay, say that scenario happens, and Broderick Jones is at right tackle, Dan Moore's at left tackle. Do you keep it that way next year, even though the right tackle is your future left tackle?
No, I put Broderick Jones at a stronger position and tell Dan Moore either you can learn to play right tackle, which is what we technically thought you'd be when we drafted you, or you can hit the bricks. Or they draft another tackle. I know people are saying there's other guys. Joe Alt, I think it is, from Notre Dame, is a big mountainous, hulking left tackle prospect who's pretty much every bit the prospect Jones was, if not more so. That would be spending a lot on your tackles, but good teams do that. But no, I mean, failing some sort of tackle draft, I think that they should move Broderick Jones over to the side they originally drafted him to play on, because even though the gap between right tackle and left tackle as far as perceived value has shrunk in recent years, Richie. Left tackle is no longer of total outsized importance. I still think it is the more important spot of the two, and so you'd want your best player there.
Yeah, it's your blind side. And that's where you want your best tackle. And Broderick Jones says he feels more comfortable. He said it today to us in the Steelers locker room that he feels more comfortable on the left side. So I kind of agree with you there. And Dan Moore would have an entire offseason to make the adjustment from left tackle to right tackle if that is the case. Well, Chris, we're going to get right out to the phone line here, the Bordas & Bordas hotline. We got Bob, not Bob Pompiani, but Bob out Monroeville. How you doing, Bob?
I'm good. Pickett stinks. He's not hitting any receivers until he gets to the fourth quarter.
Well, okay. I kind of agree with what you're saying there, that he hasn't been great at times, but he's looked good in the fourth quarter. This last game, he looked good in the first and the fourth quarter. You need that second and third quarter in there. His numbers and his metrics are all better in the fourth quarter in the second half than in the first quarter. But I'm sure, Chris, I know you, and you have more in-depth stats than I just gave right there.
Well, he has, I think, the third highest percentage of off-target throws, so the third most inaccurate throws of any quarterback, I think, with at least 600 attempts. The 13 touchdowns with at least 600 attempts is, I think, the tied for the fewest or the fewest of all time. The numbers aren't good, and the caller's basic point is probably my biggest complaint about Pickett. If I were going to narrow down what he's doing wrong to one thing above all else, he's just not an accurate enough thrower of the football right now. That was supposed to be decision-making and overall a level of pro-ready accuracy was supposed to be his two biggest calling cards and strong points, Richie, and he hasn't really lived up to either one of them, and so that is cause for concern. You can look at it, it's not even glass half full. It's, I guess, glass 1/4 full of the most delicious cold water you've ever had, or it's glass 3/4 empty, and you only get to sip that water once or twice a Sunday, and the rest of the time you're just left wanting. So I have to look at the majority of what he's shown in almost every game of his career, and that majority is subpar, to say the least, and that's being kind, subpar play at the quarterback position.
You know, I remember asking the question to Kevin Colbert about his accuracy, because I thought it was somewhat in question making the jump from college to pros. And he was like, they love his accuracy. But that's been his downfall right now. I mean, and that's something that I believe that you don't lose. You're either accurate or you're not. You can't work on being accurate. That's something that you're basically gifted with. That's my opinion.
Well, we've seen a guy like Josh Allen, who was historically inaccurate in college and really in his first year or two in the pros, make a significant mechanical tweak to how he threw the football that fixed a lot of his accuracy problems and vaulted him into perennial MVP contender status, Richie. I think with Kenny, part of it is he just doesn't have all the throws some other guys have. You see C.J. Stroud let one go on a deep out when everybody knows a deep out's coming and he just drops it in the bucket. Kenny doesn't have that throw, or if he does, he doesn't have it as readily and as reliably as does Stroud or people like him. Kenny's got to be throwing on platform. He's got to be driving the football with conviction, and too often I see a player who doesn't seem to be stepping into his throws, who doesn't seem to be throwing the ball with a lot of belief, with a lot of conviction. I think when you get him in the fourth quarter, Richie, you do see that he starts to kind of believe in what he's doing. So as we have said, 500 times in the last couple of months, the trick is convince the guy to play like it's the fourth quarter in the first three.
Yeah, that's a good trick. Let's go out to Nancy in Tarentum. How you doing, Nancy?
Hi, Chris. Hey, my comment is I'd like to know what you think about Najee Harris. What's his career going to be like this year? Is he going to be good or bad?
That's a good question, Chris. What do you think about Najee Harris? If I had to make a prediction right now, I would say that they don't pick up his fifth-year option. They kind of treat it like a Terrell Edmonds situation.
Yeah, I would imagine right now they don't pick up the option, and the 2,000-yard seasons to this point are more by volume than they are by efficiency, so that's not a good thing. I actually thought he ran very hard against...
And is a 1,000-yard season good anymore? I don't think it is.
I mean, well, fewer guys seem to rack them up because the league is more of a passing league. I look at yards per carry, yards per touch. Like, does he just generate 5 yards a touch? No, it's more like 4, and that includes pass catching. I think you saw in the Titans game, even though I felt like Harris ran really strong, really well, Jaylen Warren is just a lot more explosive when he has the football. And the Steelers, for all the problems they have on offense, or given all the problems, that they have on offense, they should want somebody whose explosiveness allows for the chance at big plays whenever he touches the ball. The fact of the matter is, with Harris, you can pretty much say he's not going to hit a home run or break a big one, or isn't a threat to do so every time he touches it.
Although he did have the longest run out of the two last Thursday. I think it was 25 yards. But Jaylen Warren had more yards. Let's go out to Sonny in Oil City. How you doing, Sonny?
Hey, good. Good to talk with you guys. Great show. Love it.
Thanks for calling.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you on Kenny Pickett. If he dials in his accuracy, our game could be so much better. And if we work on the longer game and get that dialed in so we could score at will. But I would like to know what your opinion is why they're not using the no huddle or the hurry up offense, especially in the beginning of the games to get us going. and I'd be using that in the red zone.
Well, look, it's not a bad idea, and I know I brought that up a couple times in the locker room, and I guess the situation has to be right in their minds to go to the no huddle or the hurry up, and they got to be able to, they feel like they got to be able to complete some first downs, get some first downs, to be able to utilize the no huddle, and that was the problem early on in this season, that they couldn't convert first downs.
So I think if they go tempo, like in a given series, just say, hey, we got 8 yards on first down, we're going to press up to the line of scrimmage, it requires something of Pickett that I think is a very fine needle to thread for a young quarterback. He's got to get them up in a tempo setting and get them to the line quickly, but he has to almost have a slow kind of process there. He has to have a slow heartbeat. He's trying to rush them up. He wants to get the play off, but he can't rush too much. I do think they should utilize that more. Something else I think they should overall, from a strategic standpoint, do more, Richie, is try to run out of the 11 personnel, the 3 wide, 1 back, 1 tight end. They were running against lighter boxes against the Titans because they were running from a personnel grouping that required Tennessee to have defensive backs on the field. I think having Broderick Jones out there might give them the kind of athletic quotient that they need on that line to show that 11 personnel formation and be a little bit more unpredictable, because we know pre-snap predictability. Formation group or formation personnel group has made them very easy to defend at times. So if they're quicker and more athletic and can run out of more traditional pass sets, I do think that's going to help this offense overall.
Yeah, I still want to see more balls in the middle of the field, especially short yardage situations. It seems like when they're in that second and short or third and short, that they're head out to the perimeters if they're going to throw the ball. And I still don't understand why they're not utilizing the middle of the field more.
Well, I think they should utilize it more simply because we've seen some of George Pickens' best work this year actually come on balls over the middle. He's a catch and run threat. He's proven that he can catch the ball and make people miss in space. He's just hard to bring down because he's big and athletic. I wouldn't mind seeing, Richie, something involving Calvin Austin at that part of the field that isn't just Calvin Austin running a go route up the seam and trying to run past everybody. They got to get a little bit more creative. I know they don't have Freiermuth. Heck, you have Darnell Washington. He's 6'7". He's a huge dude. Try to just post him up for those little – you're talking about 2nd and 3, Richie?
Yeah,
you got
anything
that.
like
Try
that.
to post him up. Try to post him up for 5 or 6 yards. I mean, they also need more than anything. They need throws Pickett can just feel good about, that are easy completions, that maybe get the confidence going and keep it going earlier in football games.
You know, I just look back at that Tom Brady era when they would throw the ball all over the place, and in short yardage situations, even third down, instead of second and short, instead of running the ball, they would have the 5-yard and you'd slant to Wes Welker or Edelman right over the middle, and it was unstoppable. You know,
That's because Brady was the most accurate.
Yeah, you never see anything like that. They don't even attempt anything like that.
I don't think there's a trust factor yet. I don't think there's a confidence yet that they can do that. And you are comparing them to the guy who literally was, I think, in those situations, the most accurate passer I've ever seen, constantly throwing to the correct shoulder for those guys on crossers, constantly throwing them even more open than they already were. It's just hard to bring up Brady's name and not just chuckle, because we're not going to see anybody do what he did the way he did it ever again.
Hey, your partner on the PM team always compares the two, right? Or does? He already has Pickett in the Hall of Fame, so.
No, he had Pickett as Pickett to Pickens was the new Montana to Rice, but he's been forced to back off of that opinion significantly, given light of current events.
All right, let's go out to James in Pittsburgh. How you doing, James?
Doing very good.
What's your question?
My question is the reason why Kenny Pickett is so successful in the fourth quarter is because the defenses are tired and they're worn down. They're worn down, and so the game slows down.
Worn down. The offense hasn't done much to that point to wear them down, and both defenses are worn down. You know, I think it's just better that he's not thinking and they're pressing a little bit, and you get into a rhythm, and he's found ways of getting into a rhythm late, and they have pressure on him. You need to feel that early on. They come out slow and sluggish to me, and that's not what they look like in the fourth quarter.
I mean, I think that they run through this basic question in his mind, or this question runs through his mind. What's the worst that could happen?
Exactly.
Early in games, he throws an interception, he holds onto the ball too long, strip sack. he thinks, man, I just lost my team the game. I think that he and they believe, well, let's just keep it close and then we'll play real offense. That's just not a consistent way to live in the NFL. It's not really a fun thing to watch, I think, for fans who are just screaming for 3 quarters, feel like it was a waste of their time to watch the game only to have the Steelers pull it out in the end. I mean, I really do think that they need to almost be willing, Richie, to potentially lose a game or risk losing a game to the end of, we're going to open it up early, we're going to keep the throttle open, and we're not going to worry about the consequences if things go bad.
Yeah, it'll be hard for the Steelers, even with the defense like they have, to go up against an offense that has long drives and will just, 5-yard you to death and keep that defense out there. And that was a big problem with the 49ers. The Steelers offense goes 3 and out, and the defense can't get off the field.
And if you want to get your opinion heard, don't forget to tune in to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call tonight at 10:35 on KDKA+. So give us a call at 412-575-2600. We do it every night after the 10 o'clock news. For CBS News Pittsburgh, I'm Rich Walsh.